The first time I found the pink bracelet, I was not looking for trouble. I was cleaning out Claire's car after a spring storm had pushed half the maple tree into our driveway. The passenger floor was full of wet leaves, gum wrappers, and one coffee cup that had rolled under the seat sometime in February and given up on being found. I had a towel over one shoulder and rainwater dripping off the garage roof behind me when my fingers touched something smooth and plastic under the seat rail. At first, I thought it was one of Claire's classroom things. She taught second grade, so crayons, stickers, and tiny erasers shaped like animals showed up in our house the way dust showed up on windowsills. Then I pulled it into the light. It was a child's bracelet, pink beads. One little silver heart. A name spelled in plastic letters, Lily. I stood there with the car door open, listening to rain tick against the gutters. Claire came into the garage carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She saw the bracelet in my hand and stopped so suddenly that one mug tipped and coffee ran over her fingers. Claire. She set both mugs on the workbench without looking away from the bracelet. "Where did you get that?" she asked. "Under your seat." Her face went pale. Not surprised. Not confused. Afraid. I held it out. "Who's Lily?" She took it from me fast, too fast, like I was holding something that might burn. Then she closed her hand around it and said, "Don't ask about this. That was all. No explanation. No softening. No, it's not what you think." Just those 5 words, landing between us in a cold garage while the coffee steamed on the workbench and the rain kept falling like nothing had changed. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 38 years old, and until that night, I would have told you I knew my wife. Claire and I had been married 9 years. We lived in a 2-sta house on a quiet street outside Dayton, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where people waved while mowing their lawns and everybody pretended not to notice whose trash can stayed at the curb too long. I fixed heating and air systems for a living. Furnaces in January, air conditioners in July, rooftop units over diners that smelled like old grease and burnt toast. I came home most days with sore shoulders, dirty hands, and a quiet gratitude for the small life we had built. Claire taught at an elementary school 15 minutes away. She left every morning with a canvas bag full of papers, granola bars, and books with bent corners. She kept basil on the kitchen windowsill and sticky notes on the fridge. Some were practical, like milk or call dentist. Some were just Claire, don't forget gloves. It's freezing, left you soup. You snored like a bear. She packed my lunch more often than I deserved. Turkey sandwiches wrapped in foil, apple slices in a plastic container. Sometimes a cookie, she said, was for morale. She remembered the little things. The brand of coffee I liked. The way I hated wet socks. The fact that I could fix a stranger's furnace at midnight but would ignore a loose kitchen cabinet for 6 months. We were not some perfect couple in a commercial. We had quiet arguments. We had bills. We had years of disappointment behind us that nobody saw from the sidewalk. We had wanted children. For a long time, wanting children was not even a sentence between us. It was just the shape of our future. A room upstairs painted pale yellow. A crib we bought too early because it was on sale. A drawer full of tiny clothes, Claire folded and refolded with a kind of hope that made me scared to touch them. Then came the appointments, the tests, the careful voices. The months where every calendar date carried too much meaning. The mornings Claire would sit on the edge of the bathtub holding a little white stick in her hand. Her face arranged into bravery before she even looked up. After a while, hope started to feel like something sharp. We stopped talking about it directly. The yellow room became a storage room. Christmas decorations, old tools, boxes of tax documents, a broken fan I kept meaning to repair. Claire never complained about it. That was one of the ways she broke my heart. Over the years, we learned how to live around that missing piece. We went to work. We cooked dinner. We watched shows on the couch. We sent polites to baby showers and left early when the noise got too much. We did not fall apart. We just got quieter in certain rooms. For most of our marriage, I thought quiet meant peace. Only later did I understand that quiet can be a locked door too. A few months before I found the bracelet, Claire had started drifting away in ways I could not name at first. She still made coffee. Still kissed my cheek before leaving. Still put basil in the pasta sauce because she said dried herbs tasted like pencil shavings. But something in her had turned slightly sideways. Her phone stayed face down more often. When it rang, she sometimes glanced at the screen, then stepped onto the back porch to answer. She began staying late at school on Thursdays. She said there were meetings, parent calls, tutoring sessions. All believable, all ordinary. That was the problem with small lies, if they were lies at all. They wore the clothing of normal life, I asked once. Everything okay at school? She was rinsing a coffee mug in the sink. Yeah, just a lot going on. With your class? Mostly. I waited for more. She dried the mug slowly, set it in the cabinet, and smiled at me like she knew she had not answered but hoped I would let her rest there. So I did. That was something we were both good at by then. Letting each other rest inside unfinished sentences. After the bracelet, I could not stop seeing the unfinished parts. That Thursday, I came home early because a parts supplier had sent the wrong blower motor and my last job had to be pushed to Friday. Claire was at the kitchen table with her laptop open, a stack of worksheets beside her, and her phone lighting up near her elbow. I was reaching for a glass when I saw the calendar alert on her screen, 4:30 Maple House. The words appeared only for a second before she grabbed the phone and locked it. Maple House? I asked. She looked up too fast. What? Your phone. It said Maple House. Oh, she turned the phone over. It's just something through school. What kind of something? A support program for a student. On Thursday afternoons, she stood and gathered the worksheets into a neat pile that did not need gathering. Ethan, I can't talk about students. Privacy rules. That was a fair answer. It was also a wall. I nodded because I did not want to be the kind of husband who demanded names of children from his wife's classroom. But later that night, around midnight, I woke up and heard the washing machine running. Claire never did laundry that late. I found her in the laundry room with the overhead light off, sitting on the floor beside the machine. Her blue sweater was tumbling behind the round glass door, turning and falling, turning and falling. She had one hand over her mouth, like she was trying to keep the sound of herself inside. Claire, she wiped her face quickly. I didn't mean to wake you. What happened? Nothing. You're crying on the laundry room floor. She gave a tiny laugh that did not survive. I know, I'm just tired. I crouched near her. Is it school? She stared at the machine, partly. I reached for her hand. She let me hold it, but her fingers were cold and still. Talk to me, I said, slugger her eyes. Not tonight. The machine clicked into the rinse cycle, water rushing in hard and sudden. She pulled her hand away to wipe her cheek. I stood there in my bare feet, feeling useless and strangely shut out, while my wife cried over a sweater she did not need washed. After that, the little signs began arranging themselves into a story I did not want to read. A receipt from a pharmacy slipped out of her coat pocket when I hung it by the door. Children's cough syrup, gummy vitamins, bandages with cartoon animals on them. I told myself teachers bought things for their classrooms all the time. A week later, I found a small package of yellow socks tucked into one of her canvas bags. Child size. Still with the tag. For schools? I asked, holding them up. She looked at them, then at me. Yes. You buy socks for school? Sometimes kids need things, she said it gently. But her shoulders had gone tight. Then came the bakery box. I got home one afternoon and found a white cardboard box on the counter with a pink string tied around it. Inside was one cupcake left in the corner, vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. Claire came in from the hallway, saw me looking, and smiled too carefully. Teacher appreciation, I asked. Something like that. I took the cupcake out. Can I eat it? Her face changed in a small way. I was saving that. For who? For later. I put it back. That night we sat on the couch watching a home renovation show neither of us cared about. The remote lay between us like a border. Claire held a mug of tea in both hands until it went cold. Her phone buzzed once. She looked down, and for a second I saw the image on the screen. A child's hand holding a red crayon. That was all. Just a hand. Small fingers. A sheet of paper with something half-colored. Then, the screen went black. I did not say anything. Neither did she. I hated myself for noticing. I hated her for making me notice. The next Thursday, I finished a furnace repair early at a ranch house, where the old man paid me in cash and tried to give me a jar of pickles his sister had made. I drove away with the jar rolling on the passenger seat and Claire's 4:30 appointment sitting in my head like a stone. I could have gone home. Instead, I parked 2 blocks from Maple House. I had looked it up once, then closed the page as if the search itself was a betrayal. Maple House Family Services sat on the edge of downtown in an old brick building with white trim and a wheelchair ramp. There was a wooden sign out front, paint chipped around the edges, and a row of bushes trimmed too hard. I told myself I would not go in. I would not make a scene. I would not follow my wife like some jealous man in a bad movie, so I sat in my work truck across the street, smelling oil, dust, and the pickle jar, with both hands resting on the steering wheel. At 5:17, the front door opened. Claire came out first. Then a little girl stepped out beside her. She was maybe 7, small for her age, with brown hair cut just below her chin and a backpack with a faded unicorn on it. She wore a purple jacket too light for the weather. Claire knelt in front of her and zipped the jacket all the way up. The girl said something. Claire touched her cheek. Then the girl threw both arms around Claire's neck. It was not the hug of a student thanking a teacher. It was desperate and familiar, like a child holding on to someone who might disappear. Claire closed her eyes and hugged her back. I watched my wife kiss the top of that little girl's head. Something inside me went quiet in the worst possible way. I had seen Claire kind to children. Of course I had. I had watched her kneel beside crying kids at school events, tie shoelaces, wipe frosting off faces, talk softly to nervous parents. That was part of who she was, but this was different. This was tenderness with history in it. A woman came out after them, older, with gray hair and a clipboard. Claire spoke to her. then handed the little girl a small paper bag. The girl peeked inside and smiled. I recognized the pink string from the bakery box. The old heat of jealousy surprised me because it did not feel like jealousy over another man. It felt worse. I was jealous of a child. I was jealous of the softness Claire had been hiding from me. I sat there until Claire walked to her car and drove away. I did not start my truck right away. I stared at the Maple House sign and tried to build explanations that did not hurt. Maybe the child was a student in crisis. Maybe Claire was doing extra volunteer work. Maybe I was turning grief into suspicion because grief had made me smaller than I wanted to admit. But then I remembered the bracelet, Lily, and the way Claire had said, "Don't ask about this." That night, I barely tasted dinner. Claire made spaghetti with jarred sauce and fresh basil from the windowsill. She apologized for the sauce being too salty. I said it was fine. We sat across from each other at the table with the ceiling light humming above us and our forks scraping plates too loudly. Her phone rang after dinner. She looked at the screen, then stepped out onto the front porch. I waited 30 seconds. Then I stood and moved toward the hallway. Not quite hiding, not quite innocent. The porch light buzzed through the window. Claire's voice was low. "I know," she said. "I know she's asking." A pause. "No, I can't tell Ethan yet." My hand tightened around the edge of the doorway. He'll never forgive me if he knows how long I've kept this from him. The house seemed to tilt slightly. Claire listened, then said, "She asks about him sometimes." I stopped breathing like a normal person. "She asks about him, not me." "Him," said from the other side of glass. Through a wall of secrets I had apparently been living beside for months. I walked back to the table and sat down before she came in. My plate was still there. The spaghetti had gone cold, sauce thickening around the noodles. I turned my wedding ring around my finger until the skin beneath it went pale. When Claire came back inside, her face had that careful look again. "Everything okay?" I asked. She looked at me, and for 1 second I thought she might tell me. I could see it pass across her face like a shadow. Then she nodded. Yes, I looked down at the cold food. That was the moment something in me cracked. Not loudly. Not in a way anyone outside our kitchen would have heard. But it cracked. I did not sleep much. Claire lay beside me on her side, facing away, her breathing uneven. At some point near dawn, she reached back like she wanted to touch my arm, then stopped before her fingers reached me. I pretended to be asleep. By evening, I could not carry it anymore. Claire was at the sink washing a cutting board. I stood in the doorway for a full minute, watching her rinse soap from the grooves in the wood. "Who is the little girl?" I asked. The cutting board slipped from her hand and hit the sink. She did not turn around. I waited. "Claire." She shut off the water. The silence afterward was huge. "What little girl?" she asked. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the lie was so small and sad sitting there between us. The one at Maple House. The one with the unicorn backpack. The one you bought cupcakes for. The one whose bracelet was in your car. She turned slowly. There are moments in a marriage where the person in front of you becomes both completely familiar and completely strange. I knew the slope of Claire's shoulders, the small freckle near her left eye, the way she pressed her lips together when trying not to cry. I knew all of it. I did not know the woman looking at me then. "You followed me?" she asked. "No. I finished work early. I went there because you wouldn't tell me the truth." "That is following me. Maybe it is." My voice sounded rough. "So tell me I'm crazy. Tell me there's nothing there." Her eyes filled. I stepped closer. "Who is Lily?" She covered her mouth. The name did it. Whatever she had been holding up inside herself folded. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. My chest went cold. "That is not an answer. I just didn't know how." I nodded slowly. Because every fear I had been trying to keep outside the door walked right into the room. "Do you have a child?" I asked. Her face broke. "No." "Did you know about her before we got married?" "No, Ethan." "Is she yours?" "No." "Then why are you acting like I caught you burying a body?" She flinched. I hated that I said it. I hated more that I still needed an answer. Claire gripped the edge of the counter. "It's not betrayal. Then what is it?" "It's grief." The word landed wrong because I was too angry to receive it. "Don't do that," I said. "Do what?" "Make this into some sad, beautiful things so I look cruel for asking basic questions." She stared at me, tears slipping down her face. "That's not what I'm doing. I heard you outside. You said I'd never forgive you. You said she asks about me." Claire closed her eyes. "So forgive you for what?" I asked. "For hiding a child? For lying to me for months? For making me feel insane in my own house?" "You're not insane." "No. I'm just apparently the last person in my wife's life to know what her life is." She reached for me. "Ethan, please." I stepped back. That hurt her. I saw it. But I was already moving. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, then realized my wallet was upstairs, then decided I did not care. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I don't know. Please don't leave like this." I turned at the door. "You did not get to keep me outside the truth and then tell me how to react when I find the door." I drove for almost 2 hours, past the gas station with the flickering sign, past the high school football field, past neighborhoods where blue television light moved behind curtains. The radio kept playing weather updates about more rain coming from the west. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Claire, then again. I pulled into a closed car wash and finally looked. Please come home, then. Please don't make this about betrayal, it's about grief. I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. I did not understand it. Or maybe I was afraid I did. I slept in the truck for about 40 minutes behind a grocery store, woke up with my neck stiff and my hands freezing, and drove home just after sunrise. Claire was not there. There was a note on the kitchen table. I'm at Maple House. Mrs. Alvarez will talk with us if you come. I should have told you myself. I'm sorry. I read it twice, then I made coffee, and forgot to drink it. By 9, I was standing in the lobby of Maple House Family Services, feeling like a man who had come to either save his marriage or watch it end under fluorescent lights. The waiting room had blue plastic chairs, a vending machine humming in the corner, and children's drawings taped to one wall. Houses with crooked roofs. Dogs with too many legs. A red bird colored so hard the paper had torn. Claire sat near the hallway with her hands clasped around a tissue. She looked like she had not slept. When she saw me, she stood but did not come closer. A woman in her 60s approached us. Gray hair, soft cardigan, eyes that looked tired in a professional way. Mr. Miller? She asked. I'm Elena Alvarez. I shook her hand. She led us into a small office with a round table and a window facing the parking lot. There was a box of tissues in the center of the table and a framed print on the wall that said, "Families are built with courage." I hated it for about 3 seconds, then hated myself for hating it. Mrs. Alvarez sat across from us. I can't disclose private case details without permission, she said. But Claire asked to share what concerns your family. I looked at Claire. She held the tissue so tightly it had twisted into a rope. Lily isn't mine, she said. I said nothing. She's Megan's daughter. The name hit me like a sound from another room, Megan. Claire's younger sister. I had met Megan twice in our entire marriage. Once at our wedding, where she showed up late in a red dress and spent half the reception outside smoking. Once 3 years later at their mother's funeral, where she and Claire had an argument in the church parking lot so sharp that Claire cried all the way home and never told me what was said. After that, Megan became a subject with the lights turned off. Claire swallowed. Megan died in January. I blinked. What? She was sick. She didn't tell many people. By the time I knew, it was late. I looked from Claire to Mrs. Alvarez, then back again. You didn't tell me your sister died? Claire pressed the tissue to her mouth. She contacted me in December, Claire said, after years of almost nothing. She had Lily. She needed help. At first I thought it was money or some emergency she'd created, and I was angry before I even heard her voice. Broke, but she kept going. Then she told me she had cancer. She told me Lily didn't have anyone stable. Lily's father isn't involved. Megan had burned bridges with most of the family. She asked me to come. I sat back slowly. The office clock ticked above the door. I went to see her, Claire said. I was going to tell you that night. I had the words ready. Then I came home and you were in the yellow room. I remembered that night. I had been looking for a socket wrench in a box under the old crib parts. Claire had stood in the doorway and asked if I was okay. I had said, I can't be around kids and pretend I'm fine. I had forgotten the sentence. Or maybe I had buried it because I hated how true it felt when I said it. Claire wiped her cheek. You were sitting on the floor holding that little striped onesie, and you looked so destroyed. I thought, if I bring a child into this house, even as a conversation, I will break him. So you lied. Yes, the word was quiet. No defense around it. I told myself I was protecting you, she said. Then Megan got worse. Lily needed visits. Paperwork started. Temporary placement discussions. I kept thinking I would tell you after the next step, after the next meeting, after I understood what was happening. But the longer I waited, the worse it became. Mrs. Alvarez folded her hands on the table. Lily is in a transitional care arrangement while long-term guardianship is evaluated. Claire has been one of the few familiar adults available to her. I looked at Claire. You've been trying to become her guardian? Maybe. Her voice shook. I didn't know. I still don't know. I only knew she was alone. And the bracelet? Claire opened her purse and took it out. Pink beads. Silver heart. Lily. She made it for me, Claire said. At one of the visits. She said it was so I wouldn't forget her. I looked away because my eyes had started to burn. And the phone call, I asked. She asked about him sometimes? Claire nodded. Megan told her about you. About me? She told Lily I married a good man who fixes broken things. Claire tried to smile and failed. Lily started asking when she could meet Uncle Ethan. Uncle Ethan, the words moved through me with a pain so clean it almost felt like air. I had built a whole ugly story around shadows. And underneath it was a little girl asking about a man she had never met because her dying mother had given her one good thing to believe. I put my elbows on my knees and covered my face. I thought. I started, then stopped. I know what you thought, Claire said. No. I lowered my hands. You don't. I thought there was some whole life you had kept from me. I thought you didn't trust me. I thought maybe you looked at me and saw someone too broken to be included. Claire's face crumpled. And maybe, I said, maybe you were not completely wrong. She reached across the space between our chairs but did not touch me. Mrs. Alvarez gave us a moment. Outside the office window, a car pulled in and a woman helped a boy out of the back seat. He carried a stuffed dinosaur by one leg. I was wrong to keep it from you, Claire said. I know that. I made the decision for both of us because I was scared of hurting you. But I hurt you anyway, I nodded, because there was nothing generous or dramatic to say. It was simply true. Can I see her? I asked. Claire looked at Mrs. Alvarez. A few minutes later, we walked down the hallway to a room with low shelves, puzzles, a rug printed with rhodes, and a small table where the little girl from Maple House sat coloring. Lily. She looked up when we entered. She had Megan's eyes. I knew that somehow, even from 2 brief meetings years ago. Same guarded brown. Same sharp little frown like the world had already asked too much of her. Claire knelt beside her. Lily, this is Ethan. Lily looked at me for a long time. I stayed near the door, hands open at my sides like I was approaching a nervous animal. You fix heaters? She asked. I almost smiled. Sometimes. And sinks, if they're not too complicated. She considered that. Then she pushed a small wooden music box across the table. It had a painted horse on top, one leg chipped, and a crank on the side. It's stuck, she said. Claire looked at me. There was fear in her face and something like hope, but she did not push. I walked over slowly and sat in the little plastic chair across from Lily. My knees rose too high. The chair creaked under me. May I asked. Lily nodded. I turned the crank gently. It resisted halfway around. I held it closer, saw where the tiny metal pin had slipped out of place, and used my pocket screwdriver to ease it back. The music came out thin and uneven at first. Then clearer. Lily watched me like I had performed actual magic. My mom said you fix broken things, she said. The room went still. I looked at Claire. Her eyes filled again. I looked back at Lily and tried to tell the truth without putting too much weight on a child. Not everything, I said. But I'm learning to fix what I can. She took the music box back and turned the crank herself. This little song played between us. I did not become anything in that moment. Not a father. Not a hero. Not the good man Megan had described to a daughter she was leaving behind. I was just a tired man sitting in a chair too small for him, listening to a cheap music box play a tune I did not know, realizing that grief had made strangers of all of us. That afternoon, Claire and I went home in separate cars. I pulled into the driveway and sat there after turning off the engine. The house looked the same. White trim, porch light, a rake leaning against the garage because I never put tools away when I said I would. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and basil. I went upstairs to the yellow room. The door stuck when I pushed it open. It always did in wet weather. The room was dim, boxes stacked along one wall, the disassembled crib wrapped in an old sheet, Christmas ornaments, a fan with a cracked blade, a plastic bin labeled baby in Claire's handwriting. I stood there for a long time. I remembered all the ways Claire had tried to come near the subject over the years. A foster care flyer she left on the counter that I pretended not to see. A story about a student needing weekend placement that I answered with silence. A night when she said, there are other ways to build a family, and I said, can we not? I had thought I was surviving, maybe I was. But I had also trained my wife to walk carefully around the largest room in my heart. Then I was shocked to find she had gone around me. That did not make her lie right. It did not make my suspicion harmless. It just made the truth more human and less clean. Claire came home near dusk. I heard her key in the lock, then her footsteps stop at the bottom of the stairs. I'm up here, I called. She appeared in the doorway of the yellow room and looked at me standing among the boxes. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I should have told you. Yes, I was afraid. I know. That doesn't excuse it. No. She nodded, absorbing each answer like she deserved the plainness of it. I sat on an old storage bin. I should have listened better when you tried to talk about kids. I shut every door before you could even knock. Claire leaned against the doorframe. You were hurting. So were you. She looked down. I made my pain the weather in this house, I said. You learned to check the sky before speaking. That made her cry, but softly. No performance, no argument. I don't want us to protect each other with secrets, she said. I don't either. I don't know what happens with Lily. Neither do I. She may not come here. Or she might. Or it might be complicated for a long time. I nodded. Then we stopped pretending complicated means impossible. Claire wiped her face with her sleeve. It was such an ordinary gesture that it hurt more than crying into both hands would have. I'm angry, I said. I know, and ashamed. I am too. But I don't want to leave the room anymore. She looked around at the boxes, the crib parts, the old pale yellow walls. Then she stepped inside. We did not hug right away. That would have been too easy, and nothing about that day had earned easy. She sat beside me on the bin, close enough that our shoulders almost touched, and we looked at the room we had both abandoned for different reasons. After a while, her hand found mine. I let it. The next few days did not heal us. They simply gave us places to begin. We talked in pieces because whole conversations were too heavy. At the kitchen table, in the car, while folding laundry, while standing in the grocery store aisle deciding whether Lily might like strawberry or grape jelly if she ever came over. Claire told me about Megan's last weeks. How angry she had been, how scared, how she made jokes at terrible times. How she cried when Lily left the room. How she asked Claire to forgive her and then got mad when forgiveness did not arrive fast enough. I told Claire what it felt like to watch her with Lily from my truck. How small I felt. How quickly my mind turned her tenderness into evidence against her. That scared me, I said one night. What did? How easy it was to believe the worst when I felt left out. Claire looked at the table. The pink bracelet lay between us beside my keys. She had placed it there that morning, not hidden in a purse, not tucked in a drawer, just there. A small bright truth on scratched wood. I gave you reasons to feel left out, she said. Yes. I touched one of the beads with my finger, and I brought old hurt to new facts. She nodded. We were getting better at telling the truth without using it as a weapon. On Saturday, we went back to Maple House together. Lily was in the activity room, sitting cross-legged on the rug with the music box in her lap. When she saw us, she did not run over. She did not smile right away. She just watched, deciding whether we were the kind of adults who stayed. I respected that. Claire sat on the floor first. I lowered myself more carefully because my knees objected to floors more than they used to. Lily turned the crank on the music box. The horse spun in a small, uneven circle. It still sticks a little, she said. Most things do, I said. She thought about that, then handed it to me. This time, I did not take out my screwdriver right away. I showed her where the pin caught. I let her hold the flashlight. I told her repair was mostly patience and not forcing the part just because you wanted it to move faster. Claire gave me a look when I said that I deserved it. When the music box played smoothly, Lily smiled. Not big, not movie-ending big. Just enough. On the drive home, Claire reached over and rested her hand on my knee. We're not okay yet, she said. I know, but are we going home? I looked at the road ahead, wet from rain, shining under the late afternoon sun. Yeah, I said. We're going home. That evening, the house was quiet, but not the old kind of quiet. Claire made soup. I fixed the loose kitchen cabinet that had been clicking for half a year. The basil plant leaned toward the window. The heater kicked on with a soft rush of air through the vents. After dinner, Claire placed Lily's bracelet on the kitchen table again. For a long moment, we both looked at it. A month earlier, that bracelet had felt like proof of betrayal. A small pink object that seemed to say my wife had built a door into her life and locked it from the other side. Now it looked different, not innocent. Not exactly. It still carried the weight of what Claire had hidden and what I had imagined. But it also carried a child's hand, a dead sister's last hope, and the fragile beginning of a truth we should have shared sooner. I set my keys beside it. Claire noticed. Her eyes moved from the keys to my face. I did not make a speech. Some moments are too small to survive being explained. I just left them there together. The bracelet and the keys, the hidden thing and the way home. And for the first time in a long while, the silence between us did not feel like a locked door. It felt like a room we were finally willing to enter.